Siftpop podcast is recorded in front of a live internet audience.
Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, we think baseball bats are best used to hit baseballs. It's Siftpop.
I get cold chills every single time I think about it.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the show. Welcome to Siftpop, streaming live on Mixlr every Friday or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks! I'm Aaron Dicer from YourMovieFriend.com. I'm joined by Andrew Ormsby from Flick Freaks YouTube.
Ahoy!
Every week, we'll be joined by a pop culture guru to chat about movies, television, whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. Today's guru from Jogwheel, it's John Paula.
Woo! We got him!
Hello. Hello.
How you been, man?
Please.
It's been a while.
I am well. I feel a bit disingenuous answering that question again since we've just spent the last half hour catching up. But I am swell, Aaron. I am. The fall season is such a great time for TV shows that I basically put away all my Blu-rays and all my movies, and I just kind of focus on all the pilots for a couple weeks. And there have been a few really good ones and a couple of stinkers. And I'm excited to get chatting with you and Andrew all about them.
Yeah, we're going to chat fall television, some of the shows that we're enjoying, kind of review them together. I think it's a perfect time to do it because I really feel like with television, you have to give it 3 or 4 episodes before you can really talk about it. Mm-hmm. So we're nice in that sweet spot right now where we've seen TV in that way. We're also going to touch on the Walking Dead premiere. I don't know that we will spoil it, although if you don't know the spoilers, I'm kind of surprised because they're really hard to avoid. And then we're going to move in past that into when do you decide to not watch a show? And just as a little spoiler of my own, that's what happened with me in The Walking Dead with the season premiere. I'm done with The Walking Dead now. So we'll talk a little bit about that, why you decide on those kind of things.
This season premiere?
Yes.
Whoa.
That was it for me.
I cannot wait.
I'm out. So we'll chat a little bit about that together and kind of how that happens, like when you give up on a show, why you give up on a show, that kind of stuff. Should be a fun conversation throughout. I did want to do something right off the bat, even before we get to Do We Care, because we'll play some Do We Care here shortly. And also, I forgot to mention, we'll do Buried Treasure at the end, as we always do. I have a gift for Andrew that I wanted to actually give him on the podcast proper. I will let you... This is screener season for me, so the studios, because I vote in the Critics' Choice Awards, will send me stuff, based on movies. So I don't often give away T-shirts, but I can't imagine myself ever wearing this one. So
I'm getting your trash.
Plus, it doesn't fit me. So I just want to make it very clear that I'm not being nice. It's just I have to give it to you because I can't use it. But anyways, here you go. I'll let you open that up and say what it is. So
it's a T-shirt. And I'm colorblind. Is it navy blue?
I think it's navy. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's navy.
So let's open this up. See what we got here.
Did I get the same thing you got?
It's a T-shirt. Oh my goodness! It is a Sausage Party T-shirt. If you want to vote Republican Party, Democratic Party, or the Sausage Party,
yep.
And it's a whole bunch of hot dogs, dancing, drinking, and throwing money around.
There you go.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of the Raisinets, the dancing Raisinets. It kind of has that kind of art style to it. I love it.
Yeah. Thankfully, we never got a movie where the Raisinets did what they did. Things that happened in Sausage Party.
Wow.
Speaking of things that I will never forget.
No, that's burning your mind. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's all yours, man.
Aww,
you got that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, on to Do We Care, where Andrew will throw some pop culture headlines at us, and John and I will say whether we care enough to talk more about them. What do you got?
As always, 3 Do We Care news topics of the week. First one up. NBC is in talks to revive the hit comedy Will and Grace. Do we care?
Oh, no, I don't.
Nope. All right.
No.
It's a first. We're moving on.
I didn't care either, but I knew it was a popular show, so I figured I'd bring it up.
It was very popular. I just never really understood. It just wasn't my thing. Like, I've kind of transitioned from being a, typical sitcom person, loving like Cosby Show and Family Ties and those kind of things too. I can't handle typical, what are they called? 2-camera sitcoms or 3-camera sitcoms or whatever they're called. Mm-hmm. I just can't handle them. Yeah, multicams with laugh tracks are just hard for me to swallow.
All right. Number 2, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Colin Firth, and Emily Blunt have all signed up for Disney's upcoming sequel film, Mary Poppins Returns, due in theaters Christmas 2018.
Wow.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is not only starring in it, but he's doing all the music for it as well.
Of course he is. He's the guy behind Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
So, by the way, I saw him on Saturday Night Live. Not sure if either of you still watch SNL.
Nope.
His SNL episode was really good. I really enjoyed his SNL
Was
episode.
it a recent one?
This entire season has actually been excellent.
I agree with you. I think it's been good.
The only
although to be fair, that's the case of any SNL season that coincides with an election year.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The only
it's
episodes
usually
I've seen
very strong.
are the Alec Baldwin, Trump, and I'm having a brain fart. What's her name?
Kate McKinnon.
Kate McKinnon as Hillary.
Emmy
Those
Award
are
winner,
so good.
Kate McKinnon.
Emmy Award winning Kate McKinnon. Yeah.
It's basically become the Kate McKinnon show in many ways. She's in almost every sketch, and I don't blame him. She's so good.
Yeah. Mary Poppins Returns. Do we care? Yes, no.
I do care.
I do. I think I'm excited for this. I think they're all really talented. It's the type of movie that is sacred as it is. I feel like a fresh coat of paint might not be a bad idea.
Because they just had the movie with Tom Hanks not too long ago. What was it?
Yeah.
It was him, Colin Farrell, and it was about the actual making of the movie Mary Poppins and how he was trying to get the rights.
Saving Mr. Banks.
How did you? I hated that movie.
Did you really? I loved it.
Hated that movie.
I thought it was
so
really
much.
good.
But
I was kind of indifferent.
Yeah.
Why did you hate that movie? I'm just curious. Before we go on,
I apologize because it seems like I just don't know people's names. But the main woman in that movie, who he's trying to get the rights from, her character, Emma Thompson. Thank you so much. I could not stand her character. It was to the point where I was literally going to leave the theater.
Wow!
And it was, but I didn't because I've never left a movie, never walked out on a movie, and
I have not either.
So
you hated Emma Thompson that much.
Yeah.
What was the guy from? I think he was from Parks and Rec, maybe, or The Office. No, from The Office that was in that movie. He was one of the writers. He played the piano, but he was in The Office as well. I can't remember his name.
Ed Helms?
No. I wish I could remember. It's ironic that I can't remember.
Is it B.J. Novak?
Yes, B.J. Novak.
Okay, yeah.
So it's ironic that I can't remember his name because the story I'm about to tell was from my very first Critics' Choice Awards. B.J. Novak was there, and he was the first celebrity I came into personal contact with in my first official movie critic event. Mm-hmm. And so I walk up to B.J. Novak, and I'm like, man, I love what you do in The Office. You're great, just kind of laying it on. And then I said something along the lines of, well, first of all, I didn't remember his name, which is ironic why I can't remember his name right now. and then I said something along the lines of, why are you here? It's like,
oh my god,
I was in a little movie called Saving Mr. Banks. I was like, oh yeah, insert foot in mouth, move on.
Yeah.
So I've had many of those moments since then.
I think they're to be expected.
Human, though. I don't know that they're offended by stuff like that.
No, I think they're used to it. He was really nice about it, and this last year I mispronounced. Is it Rami or Rami Malek? I mispronounced.
Rami.
Yeah, I said Rami or something. I said, "Oh, Rami Malek, great to meet you." He's like, "It's Rami." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Now he has a twin brother, so don't mistake him for his brother.
No, he doesn't.
I swear, yeah, he has a twin brother.
Does he really?
Identical twin brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe his name's Rami. Maybe it's Rami and Rami Malek.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Number 3. The 1998 film The Big Lebowski gave the world some incredible characters from the dude to the nihilist. Another character that the film gave us was John Turturro's iconic character, Jesus Quintana. Well, that character is getting his own spin-off film entitled Going Places. It should be noted it is directed by John Turturro, and it does not have the Coen brothers' blessing as a sequel.
Interesting.
Yes.
I care about this.
Yeah. Set photos have already been released. It's a real thing.
The ship of opportunity on that series, I think, passed a good decade ago. I know that it's still big with memes on Reddit, but The Big Lebowski was a fun 90s movie that I don't know that needs any revisiting. Well, and while I really like Turturro, I don't know if he can carry a show all by himself. I feel like he's
I don't know about that.
He's good as a foil.
He was great.
I literally just finished The Night Of the other
Night
day.
Of. He was great in Night Of,
I just finished it a couple days ago.
Maybe I need to watch that then.
Yeah, I really liked his performance in that. Night Of, by the way, is a show that starts incredibly. I thought it was going to be one of the best shows of all time, and then just kind of faded to the end for me. But
not me. I like how it switched up and it became a tone piece on the American justice system, and in particular, the American prison system is what that show turned into, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which that's fine. It can be whatever it wants to be, but I ended up not liking it as much as I thought I would, which isn't to say I didn't like it, because I actually did.
Yeah. Going Places.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think you're absolutely right, John. I think, and in fact, what I was going to say is the reason I care about this is because I think it's a bad idea. Not only that, I think The Big Lebowski is an overrated film. I think it's one of those.
I agree.
If you watch again, I don't think it's one of the Coen brothers' better movies. And a lot of people really swear by it. And I think there's like fond memories from, just the quotable lines, those kind of things. But I don't know that's a great movie, and I'm not sure it deserves a sequel. Add to that the fact that the Coen brothers aren't even giving it their blessing. So they're directly saying we're not involved in this, and it really throws the red flags up for me.
Yeah. I disagree on the fact that it's not one of the greatest films of all time. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
Nice.
I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it. It is, for me, John Goodman's greatest performance ever.
Really?
Ever.
Did you see 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Yeah, it's my, I think, number 4 or 5 movie of the year. And that was a phenomenal performance.
Yeah,
It's
I loved
number
him
2.
in that.
It's number 2 right after The Big Lebowski.
Interesting.
That performance, anyway. But, yep, that's all for the Dewey Cares this week.
All right, I'm going to throw a bonus one.
Okay.
Because this one hits me right in my sweet spot, and I wondered if you guys had any thoughts on it. They swapped Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4. Did you see that yesterday?
I did.
So Incredibles 2 is coming out next summer. We're getting a new Incredibles movie next summer.
It's been, 10 years? Or
It's been a hot minute for sure.
yeah, I think it came out 2007, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, it's been 10 years. Wow. Disney's never waited that long, except for, like, Mary Poppins.
Well, Pixar is always really careful with their sequels.
It came out in 2004.
Oh, wow. We're
13
coming up on
years between
13.
release dates, which I think is the same amount of time we had between Toy Stories 2 and 3.
Was it really?
Which was 98 and 2010 or something like that.
So
2011?
Here's my question for you guys.
Okay.
First, are you excited about Incredibles 2? And then second, does this concern you about Toy Story 4?
John, I'll let you go first.
No.
Yes and no. Okay.
So I'm excited for Incredibles 2. It was it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. Honestly, I wasn't excited to begin with for Toy Story 4 because I think that they should have ended the franchise with the way they ended number 3 and just left it
felt
there.
like a good ending, at least.
It felt like a good ending, and I'm not saying they can't do it because every single time that Disney in general, I get the feeling, oh, they can't do that. They somehow do it. So, and especially Pixar, Marvel, Disney proper, every single one.
Star Wars.
It's Star Wars. I'm like, they're not going to make it work. And then they make it work. So I'm sure it's going to be a good movie, but I wasn't hyped for it to begin with. So
Is it how crazy is it just with that trifecta Disney's ownership properties? Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars. How crazy is that?
They are printing money.
How is that
goodness.
technically not a monopoly? Monopoly on billions
Government
of dollars.
needs to get in there and shut that stuff down. That is,
Yeah.
right.
They have a true. I think right now, I'm going to double check as we're talking here. They might have all 5 of the top 5 movies of 2016.
Yeah.
So far.
Oh, you know what? Since we didn't have another Do We Care besides that one, I just real quick, do we care? Yes or no on this one? AT&T bought Time Warner.
Did they finalize that?
I think it was like something $billion.
Crazy.
Like
It's scary, actually, because that actually legitimately is a monopoly and should be shut down by the government. That is
It's crazy.
It's alarming, actually, at how much power that conglomerate's going to have going forward. It's a complete vertical from production to consumer, and it's kind of frightening that there's nobody in between to stop them.
yeah. I'm trying to find the actual amount they bought them for. It's
a lot of money.
It was like $50 billion, something like that. Like amount of money I will never have. Okay, $85 billion. AT&T bought Time Warner. $85 billion.
You don't have to get into the billions before it's an amount of money that I will never have. Like,
yeah,
you can stop probably in the hundreds of thousands somewhere.
Yeah,
that'd probably be me. Somebody asked if Brad Bird is directing Incredibles 2. Yes. Brad Bird is back on board. So, that's going to be phenomenal.
I think Incredibles will be. I think it'll be really solid. I think everyone is involved that was part of the first one, and I think that always bodes really well. The fact that they took a lot of time off doesn't worry me because it's animated, so they can really put the story wherever they need to. And I'm really
you don't have to worry
about
Dash
Story
looking
4.
too grown up.
Well, are they going to get the same
exactly.
voice actors and stuff? Because, that's a long time for, even those children to grow up, or they're going to have to get different voice actors now.
That's true. There could be some voice issues possibly, but we'll see.
Okay.
It'll be
That was
interesting.
a big reason why the Simpsons went with adults way back in 1987.
That's true. Yeah.
And thank goodness they did, because it's been 30 years and they're still going.
Yep,
God bless you, Nancy Cartwright. Your Bart Simpson voice will live on forever.
it's true.
You may not know this, but this podcast is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network, and it is supported by listeners to the podcasts on the network. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/StudioDNA. There are bonus episodes that only supporters get. Support starts at $3 a month. You can hear all of that in your own dedicated supporter podcast feed. So you don't even have to go listen to it at the site every week. It'll pop up right in your podcast player. In fact, in our bonus episode for this show, we chatted about a lot of stuff, including our best ever Ron Howard movies. I think we chatted. We chatted some trivia on IMAX movies, had some fun conversations there as well. So if you want to hear that and you want to support the podcast network, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/StudioDNA and support and get all the bonuses and help make podcasts like Siftpop continue to happen. Let's talk fall television. Let's go ahead and get into it. So what we're going to do here is talk about some of the fall TV that we've been watching, the new stuff, I should mention, that we're into and want to let people know about. We can chime in with our thoughts on how it's going, whether we think it's been successful, unsuccessful, if we like it, if we don't like it. And not every one of us will have seen every one of these shows, but each of us have picked, I think, 3 shows that we'll chat about.
Yeah.
Correctamundo.
All right, John, let's start with you, and we'll start with your whichever show you want to start with.
All right. Westworld is great, but I'm sure you guys are going to talk about that, so let's skip it.
We actually had a whole podcast.
Yeah, we did it on our whole
Westworld.
podcast last week, so...
Oh, okay. Well, that's right. That's why I know you talked about it. I just
There you go.
wasn't sure when. But one show I really want to mention, because I don't think it's getting nearly enough attention. Only the pilot is aired. It's an Amazon exclusive. It's a surrealist, like dark black comedy / action series starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it's called Jean-Claude Van Johnson, where our title character is himself, but in this particular universe, he's also a secret, like, action hero for the government. He's a secret agent working for the government that moonlights as a bad B-movie action hero. It is an incredible premise, and the 30-minute pilot on Amazon is a wonderful parody send-up of all of his movies, all of, like, the cheesy cliches in action films. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think, has finally found something he's really good, which is self-deprecating action humor. I watched the pilot. I loved it. It got picked up as a series. I can't wait for the next episodes to go out, because it was one of those things that Amazon published under the sort of the system of voting, where if enough people vote for the show, then they'll commission the full series.
Right, yeah.
I watched it fully aware, like, there's no way this is going to reach a mass audience. It's too niche. It's too clever for its own good. This is not the type of thing that would ever get ratings on network television. So I didn't really have high hopes I'd ever see an episode 2. But I watched the first one. I really liked it. If you have seen any of Jean-Claude's movies, or just a fan of parodies and action films in general, I strongly suggest checking out. It was one of those big surprises that I had not even heard of until I logged into Amazon one day. And I was just like, oh, this is a fun treat. So that is my
very nice.
My first of 3 picks.
I haven't seen it. I didn't watch any of the Amazon pilots this year. I remember there were a couple I was interested in, and that was one of them. And I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it.
I think the other big one's Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton. I think it's not out yet. I don't think.
There were 3 new Amazon pilots. I don't know. I think all 3 of them were picked up, though, which sort of defeats the purpose of the audience vote if you just go ahead with
Was
all
one of them
Yeah.
a new version of The Tick?
Oh, that's out
Yes,
already.
that's right. With Peter Safanowicz
Yeah.
reprising the role that Patrick Warburton used to do.
Yeah, that was the one I was the most interested in, because I used to love The Tick, but I just haven't had taken the time to go see it.
Watched a couple episodes.
Is it all right?
I dropped it.
Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got, Andrew?
Just so everybody knows, the way I went about this, because I haven't picked up 3 new shows, so I picked one show that I've been stuck with from the beginning, one brand new show, and then one guilty pleasure show. So
Okay.
should I do the new show that I started watching first?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with the new stuff.
Hugh Laurie's new show, Chance, on Hulu.
Okay.
It's really good.
What do you love about it?
So House is my favorite television show of all time. I've loved Hugh Laurie. I think he's a phenomenal actor. He plays a doctor again in the show, but it's an entirely different role for him. And the fact that it's Hulu gives them the ability to make the show as dark as they want, as violent as they want. It's kind of a crime drama because it's him trying to save somebody from an abusive relationship and just the crazy spiral that it gets in. But the thing that I really like about it, and it kind of did this in Luke Cage as well, it makes the city that it takes place in a character. Because in Luke Cage, Harlem itself was a character. In this show, San Francisco is a character. The beautiful streets with, the hills leading down to the bay, and then Alcatraz in the background, the Golden Gate Bridge. You just feel like this whole city is alive.
I like it when a piece of pop culture or a piece of media has a real sense of place. It understands where it is and how to use that, and I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah. Performances in the show are phenomenal. Every character is very versatile. There's not one character that's kind of like another one. I'm really enjoying it. There's 3 or 4 episodes that are out right now, and highly recommend it. If you were on the fence about picking it up, I say bite the bullet and give it a shot.
You two have both chosen ones I haven't seen, so that's good. I'll have to check those out. I'm going to start.
I deliberately wanted to pick something I knew that was sort of off the radar, just to give it some.
No,
spotlight.
sure. I'm going to go with mine. I think I'm going to go in order of how much I like them. All 3 that I chose, I like to varying degrees. I don't hate any of the new TV I've picked up this year, which is rare. Usually there'll be 1 or 2 shows where I'll be like, I'm out, after 3 episodes. But I'm staying with most of these. I should also mention I'm not going to talk about Black Mirror or Atlanta. Even though those are both, Black Mirror is not technically new, but it's kind of has a new life to it.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about them on the podcast before. I've talked about them much before, and my love for them is already out there and a part of the official record of the podcast universe. So,
gotcha.
I will start with my third, which is Son of Zorn. I am really enjoying Son of Zorn. There's something about Jason Sudeikis' voice performance and just kind of the I just forgot his name. The guy from SNL that's the husband on that. Yeah, Tim Meadows.
Yeah.
Tim Meadows, the way he handles ridicule is so beautiful on this show. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it, and it perfectly fits him as an actor, like how his comic sensibilities. The really
pure apathy.
Yeah, just it doesn't even hit him, you know? And it's just I love so much about this show. I think it's really funny, and I kind of like where it's going into interesting places with even kind of message-wise with the family and, coming back together and his relationship with his son and that kind of stuff. So I've really enjoyed Son of Zorn. Either you guys watching that?
I'm loving it. I'm glad that you like it too because it has been getting mixed reviews.
Has it?
Yeah. And I am thoroughly enjoying it. I watch it every single week when it comes out. I think it's great, especially Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah.
My TiVo overrun for The Simpsons records an extra 10 minutes, and since Zorn has that as its lead-in, I've seen the first 5 minutes of every episode. I quite enjoyed it. And one of these weeks, I'm going to go back and catch up on it because what I've seen, I've really liked. I just haven't had the time to pick up another show because this year I think I started with 7 or 8 pilots last month, and I've seen most of them through each episode so far, and it's a commitment.
Yeah, it is. For sure. Yeah, this TV season is for sure.
And I still have a couple others on my DVR. I started recording Lethal Weapon, and I have, I think, 5 or 6 episodes taped, but I haven't actually watched a second of it yet.
I decided not to watch. I don't think I'm watching any of the based on a previous property shows that are on. I think Frequency is out there.
Good for you. Frequency was really solid, though. I watched the pilot, and I really liked it.
The Exorcist, which apparently is actually kind of good. If you like the movie
Frequency, the show is kind of the same.
Yeah, but I don't really know that I want the movie Frequency in like some sort of weekly format, you know? Like it feels a little weird to me. Anyways,
I'm sort of obsessed with time travel genres, so
yeah, no, that makes sense.
That brings me to my second pick.
There you go.
Well, I think I'm on the clock. So for number 2, I'll go ahead. Well, actually, why not? This is not one of my 3 favorites, but I think it's deserving a mention because of how disappointing I think it is, which is the show Timeless on NBC. It is an action time travel procedural where our three attractive heroes go back in time every week to a famous event. They meet up with famous people from history, and they try to stop this other bad time traveler from screwing up the timeline.
So it's bad
and
Doctor
it reminds
Who.
me a lot. It reminds me a lot of Quantum Leap, if Quantum Leap was really bad. And it's frustrating because I feel like it's a really cool premise. But if every single week you go and you meet Hitler or you stop the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, it feels empty when every week is this huge historical event. The episode that airs on Monday is going to be the Alamo. And it's I kind of just want to see them stopping crime in the past, not stopping giant life-altering moments that shape our entire history.
Yeah.
I feel like when you do that every single week, it really sort of diminishes the impact of these dramatic moments if every week they're on the Titanic or stopping the Hindenburg or whatever. Whereas in Quantum Leap, that show worked because it was those interpersonal moments about someone's individual life needing to be changed. Whereas Timeless takes it on this big macro scale every episode, and their show just doesn't have it doesn't have the ability, it doesn't have the acting or the writing to pull off those big moments yet. So it feels unearned. When your third episode is about the assassination of Lincoln, it's like you guys have not earned the right to try and redirect this moment in history as a time travel show. So I feel like there's a really cool premise here, and I like the world building they've done and the sort of the design and the rules that they've created, and watching them come back into the present at the end of every episode where they discuss okay, we did this, this, and this. How is our timeline different? That has some fun moments in it, but as a whole, I just really wish the show was better than it is.
What was the show that was about the guy who would travel in time that was just a few years ago that I really loved that got canceled?
Journeyman?
Journeyman. I thought that was a great
I loved
time.
it.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Excellent. That was like a modern day Quantum Leap, where again it was sort of within his own lifetime, and he was sort of changing smaller moments. And the acting and the writing that was excellent, which I can't say the same for Timeless. But Journeyman only made it to 13 episodes before that got canned. Also on NBC.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I was sad that one went away. So I'm glad to hear. I haven't been watching Timeless. I'm glad to hear you say it's not worth it, because then I don't have to ever watch it. So that's good.
It's interesting. I think the pilot had some fun moments. If you like the sort of action time travel elements, it's cool to see yet another take on that formula. But I really would not be too disheartened if they didn't make it to a second season.
Andrew, what's your number two?
Number two, this is going to be the show, I should say, that I've been watching since its inception, and it just started its, I think, 11th season, and that's Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
I have been addicted to that show for a very long time. I don't know why, because it's not like any other show I watch that's, good. Because technically the show's not good, it's just addictive.
There is a difference.
Right.
There is a very big difference. But, yeah,
kind of like diet soda or something like that.
Yeah. But no, I've been loving these characters for 11 years, and that's crazy to think. But yeah, it just started back up. And here's the main reason why I put this. All of the fall TV shows that I'm super excited for haven't started yet. Like the Grand Tour, which is going to be the Top Gear remake on Amazon. And The Walking Dead technically just started back up, so I didn't put it on my list either. And then we talked about Westworld already. We're going to talk about dropping shows later on, but I'll get into what I was going to say later on. But yeah, Supernatural, loving it. It hasn't changed, and I hope it never does.
Well, and that could be part of the conversation later too when we talk about dropping shows, about sticking with shows that we know aren't great, but we love the world and the characters enough that we just want to watch them exist. Mm-hmm. I totally get that. My number two is Designated Survivor. I was really skeptical.
Love it.
I was really skeptical of this show before it aired. It's such a big premise that I think it takes a lot to pull that premise off. I will say this. I was hooked on the premiere. I think the pilot is really, really good.
I think one of the best pilots I've seen in the last 5 years.
I think it's really good. And Kiefer Sutherland is playing a completely different character than Jack Bauer. So you may go in expecting he's going to be the new president kicking butt, but he isn't. He's timid. It's an interesting look for him, but I think he pulls it off. I will say, as the show has gone on, I still like it. I still like watching it. I have rolled my eyes a few times at some of the leaps that are just natural to television that happen, whether it be relationships, whether it be, plot, moving forward, having to move forward in a certain way. Some of it's a little grandiose for its own good. It is having, I think, a little bit of a difficult time keeping its feet in some sort of reality. But here's the thing: who knows? Maybe that would be reality if something like this happened. So for me, I'm enjoying the practical, technical aspect of this world, how it would work, things that might happen. I love thinking about that stuff. The overarching mystery of it, I'm not sold on yet.
Okay.
I don't know that that's the heart of this show for me, and it feels like that's where they want to go eventually. I don't need this show to be lost. I don't need it to solve unanswered questions for me. I want it to show me how a world rebuilds, Okay. That's what I like about it.
I am in 100% agreement. I feel like every moment where it's Kiefer Sutherland dealing with the fallout of like a political wasteland and trying to rebuild the government, those small moments of intimacy between him and his staff and trying to re-navigate, those are super interesting, and Kiefer is fantastic. The writing is really good. But when they go to the macro story and they try to figure out like the terrorist plot, it just feels like watered down 24 without the action. It's just another conspiracy theory, and it just seems all too made for TV. But the stuff with him, the stuff like being president when you don't want to be, thrust into that position, it's all really, really interesting stuff.
I agree.
Well, I was on the fence about watching it because I didn't want another rehashed action president that was Jack Bauer, but hearing what you guys are saying...
It's not an action show at all. It feels a lot like The West Wing.
Well, then I'm sold. That's all you needed to say. That's literally all you needed to say.
It's The West Wing meets like... If The West Wing took place in the 24 universe, that's what it is.
So it's West Wing Jericho.
Yes, Jericho's a great
Bingo.
example. I think Jericho's a great example of what I loved about Jericho is what I love about this show. It's an alternate universe that we're not experiencing, but is interesting to think about. In the same way that we talked, I think, about The Man in the High Castle last week a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of an alternate universe there. What that show, the mistake that show made for me, and why I didn't enjoy it as much, is the same mistake I'm afraid that this show is going to make, where it thinks that it's the mystery that's drawing people in when it's really the world.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, then you've definitely sold me on that. So,
what do you got for your number 3 there, John?
I was going to say Designated Survivor because that's actually my favorite new show of the season, but I'm glad you mentioned it because I can now talk about The Good Place, also on NBC. Starring the beautiful Christian Bell. It is about the heaven, this idealized version of heaven. She goes to heaven. She's hanging out with Ted Danson and a bunch of other people, and it turns out she's actually supposed to have gone to hell instead. And it's just a really sort of quirky and clever single-camera comedy that isn't afraid to make some really funny sort of satirical commentary on society through the lens of the afterlife. And I think because they're in this sort of imaginary world, the writers are able to do so many really neat things that you can't pull off on another show. And I'm really enjoying the creativity that concept is breeding, because it's not just like a comedy where you have one sort of mean person in an environment with a lot of really nice people. It's also that situation in a sort of make-believe world where anything can happen, and how they're going to interpret this has been really interesting to watch unfold. And it's generally, I think most importantly, it's really funny.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's the key. It is hilarious.
It's very funny. And I love just they're taking like some very, sensitive might not be the right word, but some sensitive stuff like religion and the afterlife, and they're approaching it in like a broad, surrealist way that seems to me, generally speaking, pretty inoffensive, but at the same time it's able to sort of touch upon a few things that are worth talking about. And I really like that they're sort of towing that line really well.
Yeah, this is the Good Place. The thing about it is, you talk about it being inoffensive. I think that's key to this show. I think the fact that they made it just surrealistic enough that everybody looks at it and goes, oh, I get it. They're not trying to actually tell us what heaven's going to be like. They're using it as an environment to tell this story and to make some points. And so I think that's to the show's benefit. Also, it sounded like you said the beautiful Christian Bale.
Yeah, not Kristen Bell.
which cracks me up.
Bell.
But yeah, Kristen Bell is.
I mean, to be fair, Christian Bell's not a bad-looking guy.
No,
either.
not at all, not at all. But
he hasn't aged.
I got to tell you, Kristen Bell is possibly my favorite comedic actress right now because of the show.
Her timing is fantastic.
Her timing
she has something about it. She's great.
Insane.
Take that, Kate McKinnon.
That's right. I love The Good Place.
And actually, to be fair, I think Ted Danson might be my favorite part of the show.
He's great too.
Especially last night's episode. He plays the sort of he's the analog for God in this scenario, but he's the sort of the regional God. Like, he only oversees a particular neighborhood and not all of the afterlife.
Right.
But his approach to the character is this sort of otherworldly entity that has never been a human or in corporeal form. So he's really naive and innocent. And like, I think the first episode, he's like, I really want to try a corn dog for the first time. And then he does. And he's like, you know what? It's overrated. And he throws it over his shoulder. And that's the whole bit. But there's something about Ted Danson's portrayal of this sort of fish out of water, clueless, but yet also omnipotent person that has resulted in a lot of really fun moments. And it just, nails the delivery for sure.
I love all the side characters as well. I think they're great. I love the little pop-up, Siri, stand-in in this universe. Janet is amazing. Possibly my favorite
there's a
character.
lot of fun little, and that's the kind of thing, the type of character you can't really create in a sci-fi show. You can't really create in a fantasy show. It works here because of this. It just does. They just said, these are the rules of our world. People can pop in and out of thin air holding any object they want, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I love it, and would encourage anybody to watch it. It's certainly makes a lot of sense that I stole your last one, so you stole mine. So I'll have to think another one for my final one. But Andrew, go ahead. What's your final one?
Well, speaking of The Good Place, that's a show that I was on the fence about, and I was waiting to hear what some people I knew, particularly you two guys, thought about the show. And since you put it on your list as a good show, I'm definitely going to be picking it up now.
I think it's worth it. I think
it's short. It's only 22 minutes a week. Everything else I've picked up this season has all been hour-long shows.
Yeah,
so
if it's on Hulu, then I'm definitely going to pick it up.
I think a short comedy is nice.
Speaking of Heaven and Hell, now it's time for my guilty pleasure show. I've mentioned it, in passing on this show, but Lucifer, it's a guilty pleasure show, and yes, guilty pleasure is a term used subjectively depending on who you're talking to, but I am addicted to the show. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that, yes, it's a DC show, and I'm a DC fanatic, but it's really fun because it's such a quirky version of the devil. You can't help but love him. He is such a fun character to watch. And the fact that he got bored of torturing souls in in hell, so he moved to LA to open up a nightclub. It's a weird premise, but at the same time, he is terrifying, and then 5 minutes later, he can have you rolling on the floor laughing. Such great acting. And then, yes, it's procedural, so every single week there's, a new thing for him to do, but at the same time, there's a backstory here that's actually kind of fascinating, and you're curious about where it's going to go. They just started season 2, and the way they ended the first season was somebody escaped from hell, and now he has to go find him, and he finds out who it is, and it makes the show all the more interesting. I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
So it's one of those shows people might, pass on just by a first glance.
Where can I find new episodes of Lucifer?
I watch it on Hulu. It's on Fox. Okay. And, like I said, if you can burn through the first season pretty quick, and then the way the show ends, that first season, like, oh, I got to find out what happens. And so far, I have not been let down by the second season. I think there are 3 or 4 episodes in the second season.
Very cool.
All right.
For my final one, I guess I'll go ahead and talk about this. Do you have anybody who you've kind of followed through different channels of pop culture, and they do new products or, projects, and you're just like, I love that person, so I want to keep following what they're doing? That's how Bill Simmons is for me. He used to be a writer for ESPN.com, just a sports writer, and I used to love his writing. And then he started doing podcasting, and I really enjoyed, the way he would talk about topics as well. Well, he has a new talk show on HBO.
It's great.
Called Any Given Wednesday, and it's really, really good. And I'm glad, because it's kind of one of those things where you feel like you're their friend. You've kind of grown up with them in some ways. I remember the first, Bill Simmons column I read was probably when I was in college, maybe. So, it's been a journey, just kind of watching him do his thing, and to see him have a talk show on HBO.
What's the subject material of it?
So it's sports and pop culture, his two basic,
not
interests.
News.
No, not really news.
Okay, good, because with HBO, I'm like, I already watched Last Week Tonight, and I watch every now and then I'll watch Real Time, but I couldn't pick up another, weekly.
It's very different, and it's also it's heavily interviewed based too. A good half of the show is an interview.
Very cool. I'd recommend checking out an episode or two. It's not like it's one of those shows where you have to start at the beginning. It's a talk show, so you can kind of pick up at any place and just kind of see what he's up to, who he's talking to, and what he's talking about. But I think he has a really great sense of humor, and he understands who he is, and I think that's really valuable in kind of the format that he's doing. I would also recommend his podcast, if you haven't checked it out, the Bill Simmons podcast. The new podcast network is Ringer, which is his new website since he left ESPN. When he was on ESPN, he did Grantland. I don't know if you remember, the Grantland website, Grantland podcast.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So now he's doing Ringer is the name of his new projects, and in fact, Ringer does actually.
He's a funny guy.
He is a funny guy. His I guess network you would call it. They do the after show for Game of Thrones as well. Our guys from his kind of podcast universe, they do a podcast for the Ringer as well that I really enjoy. So. I thought
he's
I'd
who
mention
Jim Rome wanted to be.
that's a good way to say it.
Yeah,
I think that's
that is a good way.
That's a fair point.
And for me personally, I downgraded my internet when I moved last year, and I got rid of ESPN. I ended up saving like $80 a month because I was able to switch the whole package over. So without that sort of daily dose of sports news, I think Bill has a really good. It's been a good fix for me in the absence of a full ESPN cable channel. Watching him once a week has been a good antidote to that. So.
Oh, did he create the 30 for 30 series?
Yeah, 30 for 30 was his brainchild as well.
Well, 30 for 30 is one of the greatest series ever.
Yeah, no, they did a great job with that stuff.
Man, you want to cry? Why don't you just go watch a few of those 30 for 30 dramas?
I'm feeling in the mood to cry tonight.
Yeah.
What should I do?
Watch some 30 for 30s.
Cry about sports.
So let's go cry about some sports. Well, I thought it might be interesting to finish the show. I guess not finish. I guess we've got Buried Treasure coming up as well. But I really
talking point.
Yeah, I really wanted to get into talking about how we give up on shows. And I wanted to start that off with a conversation about the season premiere of Walking Dead. It's all over the place. If you don't know what's going on, basically the season finale last year was all our favorite characters in a semicircle faced with a new bad guy who had a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire.
Lucille.
Lucille is the name of his bat, and he's about to beat to death one of our favorite characters on the show.
Yeah.
And so we'll try to avoid spoilers as far as who dies, all that kind of stuff. But can we just say one of the most gruesome things ever to be shown on television?
I put down on Twitter, and it was actually my most retweeted and mentioned tweet I've ever had in my life. I said, this is going to go down as the most traumatic episode of a show of all time.
In your reaction video, I should say, to watching it, you film yourself, a lot of your YouTube channel's reaction videos, and so your reaction video to this moment in this show, I think, is already at around 60,000 views. And
it's a two-part video. One of them has 60,000, the other has 45,000. So
it's obviously something a lot of people are interested in. And it is, for me, let me start by saying this. I actually haven't watched it.
Oh.
So I did not even watch the show.
Are you caught up on The Walking Dead?
I am caught up to the end of last season.
Okay.
And I was looking forward to the season premiere. And then as news started to trickle out about people's responses to this, I started to think more and more about why I watched this show and whether or not I'm enjoying it, quote unquote. And I realized, to my own surprise, actually, I'm not actually enjoying watching this show. And so it was it was one of those things where I was like, well, then why would I put myself through it? And I think a lot of the answer is that it's obviously high on the pop culture consciousness. And so to be part of those conversations, those kind of things is one of the reasons I might be. But I don't know. So I wanted to kind of talk about if you've ever had those kind of experiences with shows, your thoughts on, I guess we could start with, Andrew, your thoughts on the show, on the, that episode, what happened. Mm-hmm. I saw your reaction. It tore you apart.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it looked like you were in pain.
Pretty much. Have you ever watched a show where, and I think Game of Thrones is probably the other main example, where something will happen in the show and it could be traumatic, for example, like this, and it can stick with you for days. Like, it just ruins your week pretty much because like of how traumatizing, how shocking, how depressing something is. That's what this episode was for me. And moving forward, there was before Lucille, I'll just say that, there was before Lucille, the 7 seasons leading up to it, or the 6 seasons, I should say, and then there's going to be after Lucille. This is going to totally change.
It's a demarcation in the show.
Yeah. This was, if you look at the series as a whole, I guarantee you this is going to go down as the climax of the show, and then it's going to change everything. How we watch the show, how we think about the characters, everything.
So let me ask you this. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I mean, no. Did I enjoy it? No, because it was so depressing. Was it one of the greatest episodes in television history? Yes. So I don't enjoy being in that kind of torment.
What do you think, what is the reason for you then to continue to watch this story if it's not enjoyable in a,
No,
like
the story is, this episode wasn't enjoyable. I should say that.
Okay.
Because I love these characters. The acting in the show, Andrew Lincoln is one of the greatest actors of all time. And the fact he's never been nominated for anything, but that's a story in itself.
Another one of our British actors who sounds more American than we do.
Yeah. But to me, this show, or these characters aren't just characters, because for 6 years, I've grown up watching these people. To me, they're kind of family. Because
that makes it worse.
I know. That's why it was so traumatizing to watch.
Yeah.
And man.
All right, let me state this, and then we'll kind of move towards the direction of when you decide to not watch a show. I think for me it comes down to what am I getting out of this experience, short term and long term, right? Mm-hmm. So with something like The Walking Dead, I thought I was getting story and possibly something redemptive as it continued. And I realized I've been waiting season after season for the redemption of this world. Like, what is going to happen in this world that's going to make me go, okay, this is why they're persevering. This is why they had to make the difficult choices. This is why they're the good guys and other people are the bad guys. And this show has become, in my mind, season after season, so nihilistic that it's almost as if it wants to play in a universe that doesn't give me any of that satisfaction long term. Which, if that's what a show wants to do, is fine. That takes away that reason for me to watch the show, right?
Yeah.
So now I don't have looking forward to, the eventual redemption, which, by the way, I know people say about Game of Thrones that it doesn't have redemption. I still think Game of Thrones is going to end with some sort of redemption for someone in some way.
I would not have agreed with you had this last season of Game of Thrones not ended with those 3 episodes.
Right. So, and that's why I watch. One of the reasons I would watch something like this. Another reason would be that it brings me joy. That it's actually fun to watch. It's entertaining. I've never felt that about The Walking Dead. I know some people get into zombie kills. Like they're like, yeah, that's cool. Like that has never been it for me.
Okay, I'd like to talk on that for just a little
go ahead.
So for me, Walking Dead is a show about humanity that happens to take place in a zombie world. For me, I don't even watch for the zombies because they're just there for me. The real thing is finding out who you really are. Because you watch these people, what they did before the zombie apocalypse, and then who they truly become is, realize like whenever something traumatic happens, who you become, and just the transformation of not only specific people, but humanity as well, how tribalistic and how brutal humanity will become whenever pushed to the limits. And to see what people turn into is fascinating and horrifying at the same time.
Yeah, the zombies aren't the villains in this. The people are the villains. Yeah, absolutely.
There's been so many people who said that The Walking Dead is not referring to the zombies, it's referring to the survivors.
But are we given anyone in this show to look up to root for, to cheer for, to...
We're supposed to look at the group as a whole. Because,
I thought so too, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. Like it.
Well, after this last episode, you realize, so they're not as horrible as we thought they were. There's people out there who are way worse. So yeah, The Walking Dead. It's because who you were as a person before this is dead, and who you are now is the shell of that person.
I get that.
It's a metaphor, but yeah.
So I found in making that decision that it was really interesting to come to that tipping point. I will say I have a real... it takes a lot to stretch me to that tipping point. I stick with shows long after I, don't necessarily enjoy them.
So are you 100% done with
Yeah,
Walking Dead?
I'm done.
That's
I'm
so
out.
Unfortunate.
Why is that unfortunate?
Because I think that is such
It
a
would be
good
unfortunate
show.
if I were you, but I'm me.
Yeah, that's,
so for me, I'm good.
That's so unfortunate because I need somebody to talk to the show about.
He has a point. He isn't you.
So, okay, John, did you ever watch this show? Because
I've never seen a single minute of The Walking Dead, and I, to be fair, do not really have any interest. And after what Aaron's told me, I feel like, I probably made the right call.
Okay.
Maybe one of these days I will check out a couple episodes to see if I like it, but I don't think it's the type of thing that is really good. I don't know.
The other thing that did it for
compelling.
me, this is the other thing that put me over the edge, was the spinoff, Fear of the Walking Dead.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's not a great show, and it made me realize that there really isn't anything at the core of this universe that I want to participate in, that I want to continue to learn about. And so it allowed me to do that. So I got to thinking about why we make those decisions and other times where I have given up on a show before it ended, which is actually a pretty rare case for me. And so I wondered, and John, since you don't watch The Walking Dead, so you've been kind of silent during this part, I wondered if you wanted to start us off. What's a show that you have been into but eventually had to give up on even before it kind of ended its run, and why did that happen for you?
I have a list, as I do for everything, of every show I've ever seen, and there's not a lot of there's like 190 shows on the list, but there's not many of them that I gave up before the show ended or was canceled. And the long-running joke in my house for a while has been that I'm cursed, and every show I try to pick up and watch gets canceled on me. Last year, it was Limitless, Minority Report, The Grinder, The Muppets, and Wicked City. They all looked good. I watched the first 5 episodes each, most of them all the way through, and they all got canceled on me. So it was tough for me to give anything an emotional investment and then have it get pulled out from under me. So for me to do the opposite, I just haven't done that many times. Last year's Quantico on ABC, it had as most shows do when they don't know if they're going to get picked up or not, had a sort of climax at episode 13. And then they sort of restacked the deck and tried to reset the consequences of the universe. And it's like, we almost finished off the overarching threat at episode 13, but now we have to sort of drag it out and stretch it to another 9 episodes. And that's where Quantico kind of lost me. I have the last 6 episodes on my DVR, and they've been there for months. I maybe will eventually watch because I invested in the first 15. But by and large, if a show is at all half decent, I'll at least see it through to the end.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And there's only a few where maybe, I don't know, it depends. There's a tipping point. Once I get to 10 episodes, I'm all the way committed. But getting to that first 10, I think, is a little rarer, where I will drop a show, and if that happens, it's usually early. Last year, I think I even came on this podcast and mentioned to you and Danae that I tried watching Blind Spot, and I gave that, I think, 3 or 4 episodes, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. This show is not going to get any better. And another one that I wrote down for this conversation was a police procedural called Crossing Lines that came out a couple years ago. And I was really attracted to the cast more so than the premise. It had Donald Sutherland and William Fichtner in it. And I thought it was going to be a really cool premise. It's a European sort of police procedural where they go across country lines from Italy to England to France, solving these international crimes. And ultimately, all of the intrigue of that premise just never mattered. Just one scene they're in France, the very next scene they're in Venice. And it's like, if it doesn't have any bearing on the plot, the show could take place anywhere. And I think I gave that 9 or 10 episodes and I gave up. And it ended up getting pulled from American television anyway. So if I wanted to keep watching it, I'd have to go out of my way and find it elsewhere. So, but that's it. I looked at this entire list of every show I've ever seen, and that was 3 shows I could come up with.
I'm so with you. It's a rare occurrence for me. What about you, Andrew? Do you give up on shows a lot? Do you quit watching them after you've watched a little bit?
So my rule is pretty much 4 episodes into the first season. If I like it, then it doesn't matter if the show gets bad or not.
You'll watch it all the way to the end.
I have to watch it all the way
We're
through.
all the same way. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
My wife is the exact opposite. My wife routinely will just be like, "I'm out." She just like a blackjack dealer would just tap her hands, put her arms up, and we'll be a good like 3 seasons into a show on like the 12th episode on the 3rd season. She's like, "This is it, I'm done." And I'm like, "Really? This is where you call the line?" and recently that show in particular has been The Blacklist, where after 4.5 seasons, she's like, "You know what? The writing's not good. It's not going anywhere. I don't like it anymore." And I think she's pretty much decided to stop watching it. So I'm on my own with that one.
No,
and I have to be, because I won't give it up. I'll watch that until it's gone. Even if it gets really awful, I'll stick with it.
I can go on show
curse.
hiatus. Like The Blacklist is a good example. I've seen 2 seasons of it, and I haven't started the 3rd season yet because all the shows. But yeah, I'm gonna finish it. Well, it just may not be, when the show comes out.
I'm still in on The Blacklist as well. It's one I still watch.
Do you like it as much, though?
I don't like it as much, but I still like it.
Yeah.
There are some...
Yeah.
James Spader's just too good.
Yeah, he's great.
Too good.
He's great.
There are some shows, though, that I'm still watching that I don't even really like, but I'm just still watching. One is one you mentioned, Blind Spot. I'm still watching Blind Spot. I really don't know why. I think just because I've invested already in it, and and the same with Scorpion. That's another one that started a couple years ago.
I don't even know why you started with that, because I saw the trailer and I said, "This looks like the dumbest show I've ever seen."
There's something about that group.
I mean,
they're just
the trailer
fun.
for the show. The opening trailer, the teaser that came out the summer before it premiered, was a guy using a cell phone to hack into a Dodge Viper to land an airplane on. It's like, what?
How cool is that?
None of these tools can do what you're asking it to. None of them. A plane cannot land on a car cannot be hot-wired from a phone, and that phone certainly can't do any of the things you want it to.
But it's all based on a true story.
What?
No. I don't believe you.
I was like...
I don't believe you.
What's going on?
No, it actually is based on a true story, but the actual episodes are not based on true events, but it's based on a true person's life. So, in his
very
memoirs.
loosely based.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I have those kind of shows where I'm like, okay, I think for me, I very rarely give up on something just because it's poor quality.
I feel like I've wasted my time.
Right, yeah,
all the episodes before. Like, I could have been doing something else.
So here's something I did give up on last season. Didn't watch the last season, and I decided I was out. Gotham. So I watched the first couple seasons of Gotham, and then I was just like, this is not going anywhere that I'm enjoying.
I knew Gotham was bad from the first episode.
So I'm out,
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out what it is, why I will drop Gotham, but I haven't dropped Scorpion. And it's kind of one of those interesting conundrums in my brain. And I'm just thinking, I think I need to be less of a completist. I think there's something in me that wants the whole collection. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
I completely agree. We were just talking about video games on Twitter the other day, Aaron. And that was one of those things that bugs me. Like, I got 80% of the way through Super Mario Galaxy but never finished it. And that was like 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it still bugs the crap out of me that I never actually got to the final boss and finished that game. And I'm kind of the same way with TV shows. If I don't actually see the finale, I feel like I invested all that time and never actually saw it through.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. I am terrified of spoilers. So it doesn't matter if it's a show that I'm just kind of on. If there's something that could be spoiled out there, I'm terrified that it's going to be ruined for me. Because, like, what if the show gets good and I stop watching it? And then I'm like, oh, if I were to go back and watch, I would have, been tainted on this iconic moment in the show. So I'm afraid of spoilers.
I totally get it.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I'm going to loosen up on my need to be a completist. I think if I can find that button in me, then I'll be able to drop things more. I actually really envy your wife, John. I envy the ability just to be
it's an ability, it's an emotional disconnect I don't have. Yeah. And when she says stuff with me, it's not that I'm like offended at her decision, because part of me is like, yeah, you're probably right. This show probably isn't worth investing that hour every week. And for her time is more valuable because she doesn't dick around on YouTube for a living. She has a real 9 to 5. So when she gets home, she wants to invest her time in something that's meaningful and something that's actually, like you said, gives you joy or has some pathos that's worth ingesting. But for me, it's like, it's not that I disagree with her choice. It's like I do not have the actual emotional ability to disconnect and hit that button, like you said. And it is, I don't know, maybe someday I'll get there and I'll mature to a point where I can just switch off and be like, I'm not going to watch any more of Timeless because it's a bad show. But I still will. I know this season I'll watch every episode until it gets canceled.
Oh no,
It's tough. It's tough, but I think that is it. I think if I can find that switch, then immediately, Blind Spot's gone and Scorpion's gone, and and maybe this has been a nice little opportunity to publicly put that out there.
Call?
Yeah, kind of an intervention. Some sort of podcast
we're
intervention.
All addicts that need to go into remission right now.
That's right. Absolutely. All right.
Now, on the flip side, real quick before we go to, I think, close out the show.
Treasure,
Are there any examples where you did the opposite, where you left a show or you didn't continue with one that you later regretted? For me, it's Fringe. I watched one season of that and decided that was enough for me, and I never picked it up when it came back. And from what I've read, it turns out that the show got so much better.
It really did.
In season 2 through 5, and that for me is like, I kind of wish I kept going with it, because now if I want to revisit it, I really have to rewatch everything I already saw.
Isn't that the one that has the J.J. Abrams Mighty Ducks kid movie?
Yes,
like the kid from the Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah.
Josh
Jackson.
Yeah, I just call him Mighty Ducks kid.
Let's move on to Buried Treasure. What's one thing in the area of pop culture that you want to let people know about? Andrew, why don't you start us off?
So I need to preface this by saying I know the difference between a documentary and a mockumentary.
Okay.
Documentaries are real, mockumentaries are fake to look real. I saw a documentary the other day. One of the most fascinating I've ever seen it in a very long time. It's called Tickled.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have it in my screener pile.
Okay, so it's a documentary about
Tickled.
This guy. He's a news reporter from New Zealand. Or an investigative journalist, I should say. And what he does is he goes around and he tries to find the weird side of life. And he comes across this video online about competitive endurance tickling. And he thinks
That's bizarre.
He's like, I got to do a story on this. So he sends a message to the people. He's like, hi, I think this is really fascinating. I think it'd make for a really good news article. Would you mind doing a video on this? And then they send him back a video or a message saying, we don't deal with homosexual journalists. Why don't you just stay? And they start sending him all these really evil racial slurs, homosexual or like homophobic slurs. And he's like, what's going on here? And you get into this, like, you find out there's a lot of money behind this, that maybe there's this dark underbelly.
Like a seedy side of why people are in tickling.
You're blowing my mind right now.
And the entire time you're watching this documentary, you're like, this isn't real. There's no way this can be real. And it gets to this whole weird catfishing thing, and you're like, what is going on? And by the end of it, it sounds like it's really funny. It gets dark and horrifying by the end of this thing. You're like,
so when he starts to peel away at the scab that has been brought up to him, he sees that there actually is something weird underneath, as opposed to like, oh, that's all, conspiracy nonsense. Oh, interesting.
I cannot recommend enough. I haven't seen too many documentaries this year. So far, this is number one for me.
That's great. I have a huge pile of docs that I'm supposed to watch because our association actually separated documentaries into their own award show. And
the Critics' Choice?
Yeah, so there's now the Critics' Choice that's TV and movies, and then there's a Critics' Choice Documentary Awards. And so all those screeners have come. So Tickled is among many that I'm,
You gotta check it out. for the sole purpose that, that there's a whole bunch of documentaries out there that are like, we need world change, and, they have this, very powerful message. This has got to be the most unique documentary I've ever seen in my life.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
Fascinating. I'll go with a website, and I don't want to talk politics, but I will only say that Nate Silver's 538.com is basically been my only sort of beacon of hope and my only respite through this awful election season we've been stuck in for the last, 3 years?
It's been a while,
If you've never been to it, I appreciate the website just as like a data nerd, like the graphs,
he's incredible.
The polls, the images, and the color, and just the way that he organizes and then displays the data for even just like the local elections, the Senate races, the presidential thing. Just the way that all the data is collected and displayed is really fascinating to look at. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. And I've actually ended up just setting this as my homepage. So every day I log in, I can sort of see how the race is going. Because I hate it. I hate that I'm like addicted and hooked on all of the political news. But
it's reality TV.
At heart, I really am a political junkie. I love just the politics of this country, even when they're nasty and messy like this year's election. So every day I've been checking 538. The blog posts he writes are really well written and have some really cool insight. And just watching the little lines in the graphs and the electoral map change from red to blue and back and forth has been nice. Over the past couple months, it's been like, all right, I don't need to listen to the noise. I can just look at this, and this is the only thing that matters. Let's see how his prediction shakes out in, whatever it is, 11 more days.
Yeah, he's really
Nate Silver, is that what
Nate Silver 538 is the website, and spelled out, right? I'm not sure exactly what the URL is, but it's
spelled out 538.com, which is the number of electoral votes in our system.
And it is great stuff. I'm totally with you. They are actually doing a daily podcast for the last 2 weeks of the election every day. They're talking for about 20 to 30 minutes of kind of what the yesterday was.
We're 2 weeks away from Election Day.
Yeah, we're less than 2 weeks now. It's a week from Tuesday.
Can't come soon enough.
Yeah. Okay, not to sound bitter or anything, but this whole election process is not going to end on Election Day. We're going to have to hear about it for a very long time afterwards, regardless of who wins.
Man. Oh, thanks. Now it's up to me to bring the podcast back up to an encouraging note to end with. This is actually a new TV show I'm watching with my youngest son that I wanted to throw out there, and I was going to talk about it in the TV, but I thought I'd save it for my buried treasure. It's from the same people who did Phineas and Ferb, which is one of my favorite animated TV shows. It's called Milo Murphy's Law, and it's the main character is voiced by Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, I'm sold.
As is the theme song done by him. And it's about a kid who's growing up, and everything wrong happens to him. His name is Milo Murphy, and that's why it's called Milo Murphy's Law. And so it's about him and his friends and how they cope with the fact that everything goes wrong in his life. And he keeps... It's kind of how I talked about Tim Meadows in The Good Place, or not The Good Place, Son of Zorn.
Son of Zorn.
You know, how he is, just kind of nonplussed. That's Milo Murphy in this world.
The rubber glue mentality?
Yeah. Everything is going wrong, and he keeps this sunny disposition, and it's really funny. It's interesting, and if you ever loved Phineas and Ferb, it's kind of that same animated sensibility. I would highly recommend it. Like I said, I watch it with my youngest, and we have a good time with it. So, and it's that same kind of, I think it's on, what is the Disney XD maybe, or something like that. And it kind of follows that same 2 15-minute episodes a week kind of thing. So Milo Murphy's Law would be my buried treasure to check out.
I've been a Weird Al fan since I was a little kid, so you got me interested.
It's so cool. Yeah, he voices Milo Murphy. So
do you know what network it's on?
Yeah, Disney XD, I think, is what network it's on, but you can find it online.
I'm assuming it's family friendly since you said you're youngest, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a quick aside, I just think it's really neat that we live in an age where pop culture is no longer digested from the network. Like, all of us today mentioned a bunch of shows, and we had to think twice about where it actually came from.
Right.
Because at this point, everything is so sort of saturated and omnipresent, we can just sort of get it where we want, and we don't even think about it anymore, and I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like being at the food court at the mall, You're not even sure what restaurant it's coming at.
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. I think we all picked a show from, I think, 4 or 5 different platforms today. Cable, network, the 3 different internet giants, and
yep.
I think it's pretty great. Good smorgasbord of fall TV.
I guarantee you the CW is going to turn into an internet giant in the next 2 to 3 years.
Why do you say that?
Because
they're moving away. Facetious or
no? They're moving away from network. They're moving to online.
Online only. They're going to let go of their actual network affiliates, kind of thing.
Like you can watch every single show on the CW now on their website, and you just have to watch ads like you would on Hulu, and it's free.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where it's heading. It becomes less and less important to actually have a terrestrial signal.
So I think that, CW is going to light the way for a whole bunch of other networks.
So that's right. That's what you come to Siftpop to hear.
Yeah.
News like that. CW is going to be lighting the way for years to come.
Thanks, Flash.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Siftpop is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other live and later shows on the network by following the feed at mixlr.com/studiodna. That's mixlr.com/studiodna. Huge thanks to today's guru. It's John from Jogwheel.
Bye.
You got anything you want to plug, John? Anything going on that you want to send people to?
I am currently in the middle of my annual Halloween special of movie reviews. Last week I reviewed 5 classic Dracula films, and then later this weekend I'll be talking about 5 more modern-day vampire adaptations, and that's sort of a big undertaking for me. Last week's episode took around 50 to 60 hours to put together, so check it out, jogwheel.com, especially if you want to hear my thoughts on films from 1922.
John, one of the things that I have always appreciated about you and your channel is your production level. I love the effort you put into producing your shows. So, big shout out to you.
I'm glad
and let people
someone
know.
noticed.
No, it's high quality. You could pop it on TV and nobody would know the difference. It is that high quality production. So, you're doing a great job. And I really encourage people to go check that out. Also, much love and gratitude to our Patreon supporters for giving monthly to make this show and others on the network possible. Support starts at $3 a month and comes with some pretty fun perks. You can find out more info at patreon.com/studiodna. Also, please rate and comment at your podcast player of preference, especially if you listen in iTunes. iTunes uses that information to promote the show, and it'd be very cool if you could leave us a comment. Anything else you want to say or ideas for the show, feel free to email us at feedback@siftpop.com.